Hello, America. My name is Kat, and welcome to Speak Truth to Lies. Today, I want to share an article with you about the author of Color, Communism and Common Sense. I think it's important to provide a bit of historical context to the article or to the book that I am going to be reading and talking about. And this is written by a gentleman by the name of Bill Bowman, and it was written in September of last year. While the national election only a few weeks away, many Americans feel antsy about the possible outcomes. Many of the people I have talked with represent a cross-section of Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, and independents from all backgrounds, religions, and ethnicities. They have one thing in common. They want a civilized and peaceful outcome that will provide the leadership that moves our nation forward. Yes, there are significant issues under consideration with this election, the economy and the coronavirus pandemic being the two biggest concerns. Now, with the passing of the highly respected liberal Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the results of this election will have an even more significant impact on America. With this being the case, I feel compelled to share a few thoughts with you about the hostile dialogue, riots, and devastating destruction in over a dozen major cities. I believe that we need to be more sensitive to the needs and concerns of our minority populations. I also think we have a few bad cops and perhaps some questionable restraining and apprehension tactics that need to be reviewed and corrected. However, do I think we need to disband the police force and eliminate law and order? No. Should criminals go free without bail, a hearing, or a fine or punishment? Of course not. Just the thought is nonsensical. What is the logic and where are the demands coming from? These are questions I can answer and debate with anyone. I believe that the unrest and destruction plaguing America today has little to do with race, social injustice, or debate about what lives matter the most. I believe demonstrators marching peacefully in the streets are exercising their constitutional rights. However, peaceful protests are now being hijacked and infiltrated by paid hoodlums and mobsters whose only objective are to disrupt, loot, and destroy property and our American way of life. Antifa and Black Lives Matter are not about justice. They are political organizations that are all about disrupting our government, our American way of life, and turning our country into a socialist, Marxist, and communist nation. So I want you to keep this in mind. The author, this is the point that they're making. He's not talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, okay? Most of us support the movement. He's talking about the organization that provides political funding to primarily Democratic politicians. Socialism and the Communist Party have been active in the United States since the 1930s. I digress, long before the 1930s. We published the entire Communist Manifesto in the July 22nd issue of Up and Coming Weekly and outlined in red their successful accomplishments to date. It is scary and should concern all freedom-loving Americans. This document was copied directly out of the U.S. Congressional Record. Need more proof that Marxist and communist influences are in play? Read on. Few people have heard of Manning Johnson. 1908 to 1959, he was a unique, intelligent, and influential Black man from New York who was successfully recruited by the American Communist Party at a very young age. His job as a communist community organizer was to convince Black Americans that white America would continue to suppress them and that their lives would be so much better under a socialist, Marxist, communist government. He was very good at his job and rose fast through the ranks of the Communist Party until he held one of the highest positions in their national committee. There he was trained to disrupt cities and towns, organize mobs, incite riots, attack police, to include how to strategically and tactfully throw a brick and hide. Does all this sound familiar? It should. Miraculously, and mostly because of his Christian upbringing, Johnson had a revelation and realized the communist strategies, tactics, and lies were not at all beneficial to Black Americans and only causing more hardship and suppression. He saw the deception and how the rejection of traditional American values and contempt of Christianity lowered the value of humanity and quality of life. This is when he turned government witness, opposing socialism and communism. Many people are not familiar with this American patriot who preceded Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Johnson loved America and loved his people, and like Dr. King, ultimately gave his life spreading the word, educating and warning Black Americans of the cruelty and diabolical strategies used by the angry liberal left, Democrats, in their attempt to hand over the US to the Socialist and Communist Party. This was Johnson's mission and passion until his untimely death in 1959. Johnson testified before Congress several times about the communist plot to take over America. His testimony is a matter of record. His testimony and the threats to our democracy are as relevant today as they were then. After he left the Communist Party in 1940, he authored an amazing book titled Color, Communism and Common Sense. This book could have been written yesterday. He details his experiences with communist leaders and the liberal left conspiracy and the sordid tactics they use. Ending democracy and capitalism will never bring us peace and prosperity. No one can name even one country where socialism has been successful. Manning Johnson's 1953 government testimony is available here. I encourage everyone to read Manning Johnson's book and listen to his farewell speech online. Remarkable. He was a great, great man. This book is extremely relevant and could have been written yesterday. Nothing happening in America today is new. Socialism and communism are not a good thing for America, and in the end, the Constitution of the United States will endure, or at least we can hope. Americans will unite together regardless of race, religion, color, or political affiliation. Together, we will reject these un-American attempts to disrupt and dismantle our country. Thank you for reading Up and Coming Weekly. So a few things I want to share with you is critical race theory that's being injected into our colleges. It's been there for a while. They're now trying to put it at an elementary school level. We're seeing it in some of the politicians that we have elected. This is a dangerous ideology. It pits whites versus blacks. It paints America as a systemically racist nation. And this is dangerous because America and the ideals that the Constitution outlines gives other countries, people in other countries, hope. And if America falls, there'll be no place for these people to go. I cannot stress the importance of how we as Americans need to unite against this. It has permeated every aspect of the news media organizations, movies, culture, our educational systems. It's dangerous. It teaches young children to be racist and view themselves as either oppressed or the oppressor. It tears families apart. So I am hoping that you will join me on this journey in reading this book, and that hopefully you will share this book or share these videos so that other people can wake up and understand that we are not in a race war. We are in a culture war, and unfortunately, the wrong one is winning. And we as Americans who value our freedom of speech, our freedom of liberty, need to stand up and fight against this with every breath that we have. America is worth fighting for. And remember, people, hypocrisy is everywhere. Speak truth to lies.